Okay, let's see. Don't mind me trying to get situated, y'all. Hey, you guys, how are you? Good evening, I should say. About to be good night. Don't mind me trying to sit up. We're gonna wait for a few more people to get on and we're gonna get started. Hello everyone, how are you? Don't mind me trying to sit up. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry you guys. Thank you guys for gracing me a whole 12 minutes. The struggle was so real tonight. For real. We're gonna wait for a few people to get on and then we're gonna chat. We're gonna talk. Or we're gonna get started rather. And hello madam, how are you? How's that wedding planning coming along? Oh my goodness, it's about to get real. Oh goodness. Give a few more people a chance to get on, y'all, and then we're gonna get started. I really need my drop cord. I hope you guys can see me quite a bit. It's not supposed to be stressful. Don't let it be stressful. It's supposed to be fun. I literally, that's a whole nother testimony for a whole nother session, but I literally planned my wedding, y'all. Speaking of being married, in like 3 weeks. Not lying, not exaggerating. Planned my wedding in 3 weeks, y'all. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful wedding. Miracle on top of miracle. All of my bridesmaids said yes. We all found our dresses on sale. Beautiful dresses. Our colors were like a turquoise and a coral. Like a champagne nude color. If I could go back, I'd probably do all nude. But I mean, because I'm just not a colorful person. My best friend tells me I need to brighten up. But it's whatever. Hey Kirsty, how are you, madam? We're gonna get started here in a minute. I hope you guys can see me okay. Can y'all see me okay? Let me try to, because I know I'm a little dark. I tend to lighten up in the wintertime though, so. Is that better? Maybe. Okay. I don't want to be all up in y'all's grill. I'm sorry. We're going to get started here in a second. I have some cool little announcements, one or two, for you guys tonight. So, as we're waiting on a few more people to join, I'm going to go ahead and start us in a word of prayer. Does anybody have any prayer requests that they would like to make known before the end of the session? You can go ahead and make it known before we pray. If there are any prayer requests, you can go ahead and make them known if there are any. Chelsea, I'll be praying for your wedding planning process. That it will be enjoyable. It is possible to enjoy the process and not stress. Like, keep in mind, it does not have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be huge and glamorous, and it's all gonna work out. For sure. And if anybody needs any tips on planning a wedding in 3 weeks, get up with me. And I proposed to my husband. I don't know if I ever told you guys that, but I proposed to him because he was like taking his time, and we didn't have time. So all right. So we're going to go ahead and pray. If there are no prayer requests, we're going to go ahead and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for this tonight, God. I just want to thank you, God, for what you are doing in this ministry, God. I just want to thank you for enabling me to reach it to 1 year, God. Just being obedient, God, and allowing myself to be available to you, allowing myself to be used by you, and being raw and transparent with our brokenness, God. I'll never forget the words that fell from her lips over a year ago, God, from your servant's lips, that said, God wants to use your brokenness to touch other people. God, I believe that. I've seen how that has manifested in the past year, God, and I know that even still, this is only the beginning, God, and I just ask, God, that you just continue to use me, God, continue to equip me and enlighten me, God, as I try to do the same for every woman that watches, God, and as we're virtual, God, for every couple that may be watching, Lord, I pray, God, blessings on top of blessings over every marriage, God. I pray, God, that you'd assist Chelsea, God, in her wedding planning, God, that you would enable her, God, to enjoy the process, God, and not dread it and not stress about it, God. I love you. I thank you for who you are, for being so faithful, God, and helping me through pregnancy, through having a baby, to continue to be able to be disciplined to do this every single month, God. I love you, and it's all your sweet name we pray. Amen and amen.
Mom, I had to put the dirty clothes up.
Okay, go get dressed, sis. Bye. Sorry. So we're gonna get started. So I want you guys to, I don't know how long you guys have been watching. Maybe you guys can tell me in the comments how long you've been watching, how long you've been following the ministry. I'm just curious to know. And it's also going to help me with our little prizes that we have coming, that are going to be available. So let me know how long you guys have been watching. This literally marks 1 year. 1 year that we've been doing this, and it's crazy because when I got ready to start this thing, God spoke to me as I was washing dishes, and some of you guys know a little bit of the backstory, but just really briefly, I just want to say that I ended up going to a winning tickets to go to a women's conference in Miami, Florida, through a woman that I've been gleaning from for years and years and years on top of years. So if you don't have a powerful woman of God, or somebody who has a sound mind, which are usually hidden in God, to glean from and talk to maritally, like, find you somebody, I encourage you, and find you somebody on social media, or somebody that can pour into you on a daily basis in your marriage, because this is a type of ministry, and when I say ministry, I mean marriage, not married sisters, that you have to pour into daily. You have to feed it, you have to water it, you have to be intentional about it, and you have to make it a priority in your life, or else it will begin to falter and fail. And I've seen that in my own marriage, and I've been married going on 5 years now, and I'm not at the least, in the slightest, a pro. I'm not in the least, the wife of all wives, by no means. I feel like Paul, he was like, I'm the sinner of all sinners, So, and I'm so excited because I was thinking about this as we were getting started. I'm so excited because I see that even in the past year, as we've grown, I still see that there's so much more room for me as a wife to grow. I'm not even talking about my husband. I'm not talking about our marriage. But I see that there is so much room for me to grow. And God said he would use the brokenness. So I'm going to continue to count it joy as I do grow. But I was washing dishes one night when I got back from the conference. When I was there, I was at the altar, and a woman spoke to me, and I was in a very, very, very dark place in my marriage. My husband and I were in a dark place. The enemy was attacking him individually, attacking me individually, and then he was just really attacking our marriage. And then we, in our own sinful flesh, was just doing a lot of damage to our marriage. So how dare I be foolish? Or I wouldn't dare be foolish and blame it all on the enemy, because it was not all him. I refused to give him all the credit. And just having the wisdom to know it was not all him. Because sometimes we are drawn away by our own evil desires, and we fall up under our own weight. But anyway, so she speaks to me, and she says, God wants to use the brokenness in your marriage to touch other people. And as something I held on to, and when I got back, I was washing dishes one night, and very clearly I just felt I was just thinking about married women and just thinking about marriage in general, and I just heard the name Married Sisters, and I just felt, it wasn't like God said, start a ministry. It wasn't anything like that, but I could definitely tell like he was pulling me to do something on behalf of married women. And then my husband confirmed it. And after being in a quiet place with God, he was like, babe, you know, I just really feel led to tell you that you should start this thing because God said it's going to be great. And then I ended up having dreams about it. And so I fasted for an entire month. And when I started fasting, I started feeling really bad. I fasted all sweets. And this is funny. I fasted for an entire month and I fasted all sweets. And you're like, sweets? Like, for all you religious folk, you do not have to fast like food and like nearly kill yourself, okay? But I fasted all sweets, and I didn't realize how addicted I was or how drawn I was to them until I got rid of them. But and I just began to feel so weak and like I was literally about to die, and I was like, oh my God, I can't do this, Jesus, I can't do it. And God spoke to me and he said, you're gonna need energy for this. And I was like, no kidding. But, and I guess I feel like it was interchangeable because at the time I was pregnant and did not know it. I was pregnant with our baby boy, who's now 5 months. Oh my God, he's getting so big. But he was like, you're going to need energy for this. And, you know, I know that he was talking about the pregnancy and this ministry all in the same. And so I continued to fast, and then I ended up having a dream that we were inside of a hotel room because I couldn't figure out where we were going to have the first in-house session. For all those who are watching, when COVID blows away, we'll be starting back our in-house sessions, which will still be every third Monday, but it will be at 6:30. We'll meet at 6:30. I will feed you guys, and then we'll go into our session. We'll do a Q&A after, and that'll be it. I'm excited to get back to that. But anyway, and we were in a hotel room, and there was a bunch of women there, and I was, you know, just crying, and I was like, I just want to thank you guys for coming. And I was like running so late, kind of a little ironic that I was like a few minutes late tonight. I'm sorry. And I basically got there after like the session was over. Like there was no session. The women were just kind of waiting on me like the entire time. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, y'all. I was like, I just want to thank you guys for coming. And I was like, wow, thank you, God. I'll have it at the hotel inside of one of the conference rooms. So, and that's where it literally all began. And ever since then, God has just been faithful. He's just enabled me to do it, you know, through my pregnancy. And it's just touching many lives. After every session, you know, I hear about women who are struggling and how, you know, it's helped them, and it's only encouraged me the more. So I just want to thank all of y'all who've been so supportive and so encouraging in this thing. It really means a lot. And I know that God is going to continue to do great and mighty things in this ministry. And like I said, I'm a nobody. I'm just a willing vessel and somebody that he chose and somebody who he knew would be available as much as I can be. I literally, like 2 minutes before I got on here, I was like whipping up hamburger steaks and gravy and feeding kids and pulling out night clothes. So it was crazy. But anyway, so I would like to give away some gift cards before we get into what we're going to talk about. And between tonight and tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, and some integrity is going to be required on your part. If you feel like, you know, if you've tuned in on the sessions and you've been supporting this ministry for however long, it's not required that you would have had to been supporting it all year. But I have some gift cards that I want to give away. I think I still have the one. I was going to show you the one that I'm going to be using, but it's a gift card where you can go to Outback, Carrabba's, Bonefish Grill, which has like the best bang bang shrimp anyway, and somewhere else. But anyway, I want to pour into your marriage, and I just want to sow a seed into your marriage because you guys have sown into this ministry, and I'm grateful for y'all. But you have to like enter the drawing between tonight and tomorrow. Either comment on here and tell me you want to enter, or let me know in a DM that you'd like to enter the drawing. And I'm gonna do a gift card for those who attended the in-house sessions, because I pretty much know all of who attended those. They lasted for like 5 months and then COVID happened. But it's so hard to say on here because there's so many, you know, people that have watched over the course of the last 7 months. But anyway, so, but I want you guys to ask me some questions, because a year ago today, we were not in a good place at all, by no means. I remember, you know, I remember leaving home one day, and I remember, yes, I know you have, I thought about you, I completely understand. I love you, Megan. You're awesome. I left home, not left home as in left home, but, I left the house one day, and because I just need to get out. I just need to get out and just break away from the confusion. You could tell my husband and I, like, and my husband more so, I feel, and I'm pretty sure he could attest to this, was in such a confused state about whether or not this thing, whether or not we were gonna make it. I felt in my heart, I felt in my spirit we were gonna make it. But, you know, my husband was really battling, you know, in that area and wondering, like, is this thing gonna work? And I remember leaving the house one day, and we were, I was sitting at the car wash. I literally just washed my car for like 3 hours because I didn't want to come home. And I cleaned it out, and it's probably the cleanest my minivan has ever been since I've had it. But so if you ever do want to leave the house and get out, you know, don't leave upset, but leave and go wash your car. You won't regret it. But anyway, I remember texting my husband, and I said, you know, I don't know, you know, what needs to happen. I don't know what needs to happen for us to, for this thing to work, or if we're ever going to get past this, you know. And I was in such a place where, you know, I felt like he was setting his mind, but I knew God was able. I knew God was able to turn this thing around. And I remember texting him. I was sitting in the car, and I was texting him, and I said, you know, maybe, I was like, maybe, he was like, well, maybe I should, because we really, truly, at the end of the day, wanted to do what was best for our whole house. We wanted to do what was best for our kids. We got tired of them seeing us in the state that we were in, seeing us fuss, and now we've grown. I'm so thankful that we've grown to a point where if we find ourselves, in a disagreement, or we find ourselves not seeing eye to eye, we try to break away from the kids. And I'm not saying, you know, that always works, but we've definitely reached a place where, you know, we're considerate of the fact, more considerate now more than ever of the fact that they're present, or not necessarily that we weren't as considerate before, but we have a little more self-control than we did before in terms of them, you know, being around. And it really is hard to try to get past a tough place inside of the house. But it's definitely something you should make sure you make your kids aware about. I did not hesitate to let my kids know there's an enemy who is alive, and he is present, and he's looking to destroy mommy and daddy. He's looking to destroy our lives. He wants to hurt us, and he wants to take away how happy we are, and, you know, so that they could understand that daddy and I are not each other's enemy, which at one point we thought we were. We thought we were each other's enemy, and that was not the case. But I remember texting my husband, and he said, well, maybe I should, you know, he said, I can leave, you know. And I said, if you feel like, you know, that's what it takes. And, like, my heart was so broken, like, and I don't even like to talk about it because it makes me so emotional, because I mean, if you've ever been there, it's a tough place. It's a tough place to be. And I can't even recall like the detail of everything that we dealt with, but I can definitely recall the hurt and the callousness that had like entered our hearts because we weren't guarding our hearts. But needless to say, he never left, and I just continued to pray. There were many nights where I would break away from my husband, and I would fall on my knees in such a hurt state. The conversation was unfinished, which wasn't even a conversation anymore. It was a dispute. It was a heated argument. It was a lot of hurtful words exchanged, a lot of disrespect in the air. We never saw eye to eye, and the main thing, it was as though it was the small things, like it was us arguing over the smallest things, and that's what my husband felt like a lot. It was the smallest things causing a lot of the disputing and whatnot. But there was just a lot of things up under the small stuff that was causing the rage and the frustration and the irritability, and causing all the void that we were dealing with one another. But I would break away from him so often, and I would just go into a dark room, and I would end up in there upset and like so upset in a way that I hadn't ever been upset in my life. Maybe when I was younger, with a sibling or whatnot. But hey, Kenise, how are you, madam? Long time no see. I hope you're doing well. But I would be so upset, and there were times where he knew, because he never sees me that way, and there were times he knew I would have reached that place, and he would come and find me, and because at the end of the day, he hated to see me cry and hated to see me hurt, but it would always reach that degree before there would ever be a response. And it wasn't me trying to simulate a response, by no means. As I said, I would run off and find that secret place, and I would be frustrated, and I would talk to God, and I would tell God, I'm frustrated, and then God would he would put me in my place, but first he would console me and admonish me and tell me to sit up and chin up and look up and understand that this is maturing you, and you don't have to let your emotions dictate how you're going to respond and how you're going to act. You have to learn to see the situation that is at hand and deflect it, and oppose it with the power that is on the inside of you. Do not let the enemy get you to a point where you feel like all you want to do is just lose it. When you have the situation in your hand, like you have the power. Like, don't let the enemy deceive you, and don't let him make you to believe that your cries are the only thing that's going to reach him, because there will be a point where those no longer reach him, and he'll no longer respond to them. And it did reach that point, and he was just like, I am your high tower, and I am the one you run to when you can't get a response out of your husband, a verbal one, a compassionate one. I would first end up in that place upset, and then God would calm me, and then I would just cry out of hurt, and then I would just find myself praying, and then I would just find myself speaking life over my hurt and depressed and cold-hearted, incompassionate husband. And as hurt as I was, I knew that it was not his intent. And that was something that I always held on to. And I pray that you guys are holding on to the nuggets as I go on, because that's where the life is. Those are where the instructions are. I never let go of the fact that my husband always had an intent to love me and cherish me and be good to me and be gracious to me and kind to me. Like that's always been my husband's heart cry, even when he wasn't doing those things, because and it's not to say that there would never be any remorse for the situation, or I would never have any remorse for the situation, because we'd always end up coming back together. But it still seemed as though we could never get to the core of the thing. It was though it would get talked about but not understood. So we were discussing what was at the core, and it was more so me trying to get him to see. But it was almost like it could never be uprooted, and it was just a frustrating matter, on top of a matter on top of matter. But like hope just came in, and we continued to pray, and we continued to just stand. And that was a hard thing to do in the face of your kids who see you and know that you're used to loving each other and loving on each other. And we just stood. We didn't run. We didn't run from the opposition, even when it got to the point where it was unbearable. And I just continued to pray. And I know my husband was praying, and he would ride off sometimes and get in a quiet place. Even when he was upset, you know, he would leave and get in a quiet place. And you have to be careful, because that's where the enemy attacks. He likes to separate the two. If he can ever separate y'all before you separate, then he knows he's got a foot in the door. And my husband would leave, and he would run into women sometimes who would try to like come on to him, and like those were all attacks of the enemy, and he could see that, and he would come back home running. For sure. No. He would notice that, and he would come back home, and he would tell me, and I would always recognize the enemy when he would step in. And that's another thing. If you know the Father, you know, you have to put the enemy in his place and recognize your husband's not your enemy. And don't lose heart, or don't lose sight of the fact that he wants to be good to you, even when he's not being good to you. And then on top of that, you know, I began to pray, God, show me, and show me where you're not in me. Show me what I'm not seeing. Show me what I'm failing to see. And what I was failing to see, one of the things I was failing to see, was that my husband didn't have the compassion that I needed from him when I needed it. Because it's not something that he was like molded into as a young kid, and you have to consider their childhood. You have to know who you're dealing with. And I talked about this in some of my sessions, but I was just trying to paint a picture of where we were, and how we come out of that place. But you know, I could really go on and on and on. But I just wanted to talk about how I've grown over the past, from then to now, because God has really done a number on me. But even still, I find myself feeling like I'm like chasing after my husband's growth, you know, because he's like, I'm like, I can't see you, you know, because he's grown so much, and you know, he upholds me in ways that I never imagined, or I never got the luxury of experiencing when we were young in marriage. And he's just grown in like so many ways, and it really, really, really amazes me. Like the compassion I didn't get from him before, like that compassion is like out of the roof. You know, there were so many things that I wasn't to him before, which was a respectful, or a wife who cherished him with my words, as in, or responded to him gracefully with my words. Whew. Sometimes a phone in your hand, and the text message you're trying to send can be one of the most deadliest weapons, the most destructive weapon in your marriage. You make sure you consider what you're gonna send before you send it, because I would definitely tear my husband down a lot with my words, and God began to show me how I was how I need to take my mouth off of my husband. And he even used a woman of God to like speak to me when I went to her house one night, because I was that desperate. And she told me, she's like, you know, you gotta take your mouth off your husband, because every time you speak over him, you're speaking what he's gonna become. You know, you're speaking life over him, so, or you're speaking death over him. So it's really up to you to choose what you're gonna do. But you know, Hope stepped in, and God just began to revive my marriage, and we began to be able to talk again, and we reached a place where we could communicate, and the callous pieces of his heart began to break apart. And you know, God created in him and myself a new heart, and I was no longer resentful towards the hurt I was feeling. It was no longer piled up, and it was no longer raging. I was no longer raging at him. And I'm pretty sure some of you women may understand where I'm coming from with that. But, I mean, he's grown in a lot of ways, and I've grown in a lot of ways. But I want you guys to to talk to me and ask me anything. Ask me, and I'll be as real and as raw as I could possibly be. You know, to just kind of like, you know, help in any area, maybe not in the area you're dealing with, but if you're just curious, you know, because when I say we dealt with a lot, then we really dealt with a lot. But I just, the floor is open, you know, ask me what you want, and you know, I'll be real and let you know, because sometimes it helps when the audience just kind of like dives in and is like, okay, well, how did you do this, or how did you do that? Because a year is a long time. It's a long time to try to like rehash everything that has happened. But God has been good to us, to say the least, and I'm thankful that He's using this ministry to do what it's doing. Do you ever fear your marriage reaching? Do you ever fear your marriage reaching that place again? I guess that's the flesh wondering. Do I ever fear my marriage will reach that place again, or do I ever fear that it's happening right now? Is that what you're asking, Taylor? I just want to make sure I answer that right. Like, are you asking if I'm in a fearful state right now? Like, oh my God, my marriage is reaching that place again? Or are you asking if the fear ever enters my heart? Are you asking if the fear ever enters my heart about whether it will? Do I fear that it's reaching that place again now? No, by no means. Are you trying to help me out, Megan? She's asking if it will happen again. I'll just answer both of them. No, I do not fear. First of all, God has not given me the spirit of fear. But it does often try to... do I fear if it will in the future? I get what you're saying. The enemy definitely does try to attack your mind with fear. And, but I can't say that I've been fearful since that time that our marriage is reaching that place again. But I can say that I have been mindful of where I find ourselves not prioritizing. I can say that I'll find myself tampering on, okay, like, there's been things that we need to communicate about, and we haven't talked in a while. You know, we need to sit down and, we need to talk. And it's not necessarily to rehash, well, do you remember the other day when you did this to me or did that to me? You know, it's not so much that. It's just making sure, like, you make that time to communicate with one another. But me fearing if that'll ever, and then just seeing my husband now, like, he is a completely different man, y'all. And I keep talking about him, but I don't even give myself credit. Like, he has always, like, seen me as the most perfect being ever. But and I'm like, I'm not. But he's always, cherished me in a way that I long to be cherished. But he's never It's so hard to see where, I've grown, because it's like I'm looking from the inside. But when I look at him, I'm like, oh my goodness, like the transformation. But he always confirms, you're a wife who is honorable, and I'm so honored, to be your husband and, live this life with you. So, but we're in such a great place, and I don't mean great place because you can be in a valley and come out of the valley and find yourself on a mountaintop, but not experience the maturity that God intended for you to get out of being in the valley. But I can look at my husband and truly say that my husband's not just acting differently, he is different. I can say that just because hope has entered in and restored our marriage, it wasn't the only thing that restored our marriage. God enabled us to see where we were failing and see where we were falling and respond to that and grow in those areas. And my husband truly has, and I truly have. I treat him differently, and he treats me differently. And it's not to say that we were treating each other horrible before. It was just that when the enemy started attacking our marriage because of the things that were happening in our marriage and going wrong, it was just that it seemed as though there was, like, we were at the point of no return. It just seemed like we were still two good people loving one another, but finding it incapable to love one another, if that makes sense. Love each other the right way. But do I have fear that it'll ever reach that place again? No, I do not. I don't fear that it'll ever reach that place again. Am I saying that the enemy will never attack us in that form? By no means. Because I truly, truly believe that marriage come for us earlier than I'm sure God would have intended it to, which is why we dealt with so much early on in our marriage. I truly do believe that things take time. But, you know, my youth pastor, she definitely let me know, you know, that there are just some things that you're not gonna know about marriage till you get there. And I really feel like God allowed us to deal with it early on because of how quickly we begun and because of everything that he was calling us to. And so we dealt with what we did. Am I saying we're not going to deal with it again? I definitely do believe the enemy is going to attack us in ways like he did again, but everything was just happened simultaneously then, and it was really causing us to struggle. Like he was in a tough place individually, spiritually, and I was, and then we were in a tough place maritally. Like he was in a very depressed state, and he had never been there before, and he probably couldn't even tell you what the definition of depression is. But he was in a very like oppressed state and depressed state, and he just would sit in a dark room, you know, couldn't really you know, he didn't really have a lot of hope, and the enemy was like attacking his mind all the time, telling him things that weren't true, deceiving him, and he was taking it all in, and he was dealing with a lot of anxiety, and then I was dealing with you know, the pressures of that, and dealing with the pressures of what it was doing to him, and then even me, you know, me dealing with what I was dealing with too. So am I saying that he's never going to reach that place again? Yes, but it could be that we reach a place where the enemy is attacking us viciously, but he's in a good place spiritually, and I'm in a good place spiritually, so that we're able to combat it early on. Because that's the main thing. God will, that was one of the things that was the issue too. You know, God was trying to turn my husband away from some of his evil ways, and he was doing the same thing for me, and he was using all of that friction to do that. So it was kind of weighing on us a whole lot. So to answer your question though, in a sentence form, no, I don't fear that we'll ever reach that place again. But when we do, the enemy can best believe we're going to be ready. And if he does hit us with a left hook, we felt it before, so we'll know what it feels like, and we'll know how to respond and hit back when it does happen. And I can definitely trust that the response, the kind of husband I was dealing with before, and the kind of wife he was dealing with before, he's not going to be dealing with then. But I can say, because when God shapes your character, it's almost like, you know, shaping clay. You know, when it becomes shaped, like it's not going back to its original form, it becomes a beautiful little bow or whatever you make it. So I took advantage of all that friction, and I allowed God to make out of it what he was going to make, and that became a graceful, loving, responsive, and well-developed and equipped wife. Yeah. And I'm not fully equipped, because that pottery can still shatter and break. So I'm not saying I'll never ever reach a broken place, but my husband I believe will have a more keen sense on how to respond to me in that broken place. And then I will also be able to see my husband, because we didn't know who we were dealing with. I didn't know all of who my husband was I didn't know who all of my husband was. And if you're married, you have to know who that person is. You have to know what makes them vibe. You have to know what makes them upset. You have to know how they're going to respond when they get upset. And so it was basically really all learning curves for us, but it just kind of like hit strong, and like the enemy he was like, oh, well, the enemy was basically like, okay, they're early in marriage, God's taking them through some learning curves, he's allowing the sin that is in their heart to create some friction in their marriage, and I'm going to use that friction to destroy them, is basically what was happening. But everything that the enemy calls for evil, God turned around for good, and it's because we responded to what God was trying to do. and allowed ourselves to be developed as an individual in a response to it, and maritally. But those are two separate things. You have to make sure that you're finding out what the sin you're dealing with. Then you have to find out who your husband is, just as a person. Then find out what sin they're dealing with. Be gracious in those areas, and be understanding, and all of that good stuff. It was a lot. That's why I would say we were dealing with so much simultaneously, and the enemy really thought all of that together was going to destroy us. And y'all, it almost did. It would have been okay if we were just dealing with a lying scandal, you know, but it was so much. It was just so much. I don't want y'all to ask me what all we were dealing with, because I'm not going to tell you. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't mind telling you. The molding doesn't feel good in the moment, but it's such a positively overwhelming moment when you realize how far you've come. I'm telling you. It did not feel good when I was on my knees. The hurt like almost killed me. It feels like you're dying. It feels like you're dying and you're not gonna come out alive. It feels like you're not. Oh my God! Like I'm not gonna be okay. I need somebody to help me. But God was like, you are going to be just fine. And he did not take it easy on me. He was like, and then on top of that, y'all have to understand that my husband and I, we're, and I say this very, very humbly, like God has, put a very high and holy calling. He has placed us in a sacred office. And it just, to whom much is given, much is required. And he entrusted us to deal with everything we were dealing with simultaneously, because God would never, he wouldn't allow us to deal with all that if he knew we weren't going to be, have the strength and the wit and the ability to overcome it. Now, we could have chose not to respond, and then it could have destroyed us, but I'm so thankful that it didn't. Like, I just love the husband that God has created. And he spoke to me and he was like, this is the man that you chose, and this is the man I've handpicked for you, and I'm going to mold him, but you got to be patient in the molding. He told me that so plainly, and I don't know who needs to hear that, but you have to understand that the man that you have married is going to spend the rest of his life being molded, but make sure that man is responding to how God is trying to mold him, because it requires that on both of your parts. And Paul talks about that. Marriage is not for everybody, but he says, I love Paul because he talks like I'm talking to y'all right now. He was like, marriage is not for everybody, but to whom marriage is for, and so be it. You know, to whom that commitment is for, and so be it. But you have to be very intentional about it. So nowadays we're just intentional about, making sure we make time for each other, even if it means going to grab food and putting kids in bed at 8 o'clock, and leaving and coming right back like we did last night, and playing love music so it stimulates those emotions and takes you out of your mom mode. And because that's another thing too, you can get so sidetracked when you and your husband can be so tied up with work and the mental strain of work, and that was another thing, carrying a lot of weight, and then I was working at the time too, so it was just very little time to focus on my husband and I. But does anybody else have any questions? We're getting ready to close here in a minute. I just want to encourage y'all while I'm talking. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm excited for. I have to say that very carefully. I'm excited for what the future holds for my marriage. I know it is only up from here. Even when we go down, we're still going up, if that makes sense, because we're being matured for where we're gonna go. And I know that when we were down in that valley, God was maturing us for where he's taking us. And we fought the good fight. And I'm thankful, because my husband is out of this world husband. Like he's one of a kind, and I'm so glad I held on to him and didn't let him go. And I'm so glad he's not watching because I don't like it make his head too big. I'm just kidding. He makes my head really big. And he says I have a hard time accepting his compliments. He was like, sometimes you just got to run with what I say because they get to be so much and then so overwhelming, and it sounds like he's flattering, but I know in his heart he's not. It's crazy, but I'm blessed, and I can say that if you're there right now, you know, it definitely takes it's a spiritual battle. It's not just something you're going through. It's not just something that happens. It's not just because he's not listening. It's not just because there are some spirits in there that need to come out. There are some spirits that need to enter in. The spirit of compassion and the spirit of just read up on the fruit of the spirit and sit and ask God what you're missing. And then just, you know, ask your husband to be intentional about asking God that as well, so you guys can see what it is, what area, you know, you can grow in. The growth definitely has to be intentional. Y'all have to come, you have to come face to face with your struggles as an individual. And that requires doing away with the pride in your heart. Like, there can be no room for pride. There can be no room for pride when you're in that place. And that's one of the things my husband says all the time, you know, God enabled him to get rid of all pride so that he could see himself. And he was always, I love you too. Bye-bye, Nick. Bye. I'm sorry, Lee was waving up for like 5 minutes. How have you kept the joy of being a wife slash serving up love even when you don't feel like it? Ooh, Jesus, I love getting other wives' perspectives and tips. How have you kept the joy of being a wife while serving up love even when you didn't feel like it? Y'all have to be careful asking me so, because I will break apart a question, because I have learned that you just can't answer a question and run. Like, there's always something, not something underneath, but there's always a reason. There's always a reason for something. So if I may ask, even when serving up love, even when you don't feel like it, are you saying like, how am I doing that even when I don't feel like being loving? Like, if I don't, how do I keep the joy of being a wife while serving up love even when you don't feel like it? As I would ask, and it may be a personal question, but what is making you, and maybe this is not applying to you, but what would make you feel like, you know, I just don't feel like being loving to my husband right now? You get what I'm saying? Like, what would make you feel like I just don't feel like showing any love to him? And I don't mean to make that sound like so harsh. But kept the joy of being a wife. That's a beautiful question, to say the least. Because your husband definitely recognizes when you've lost the joy of being a wife, for sure. When he walks in the door and I'll say, I guess Megan always try to. Yes, I guess she's saying, how do you keep joy while having to serve those in your home, becoming overwhelming, etc. Yes, even when you don't feel like being loved or feel that your efforts are in vain. Okay, I got what you're saying now. I was looking for the rest of that sentence. Or if you feel like your efforts are in vain, and I just feel like if you're feeling like your efforts are in vain, or if anybody would feel like their efforts are in vain, then that would pretty much make you feel like it would take away your tenacity for being loving. It would take away your unconscious effort. Like, you know how your kid does something or reaches a milestone and you're like, oh my God, you know, and you just like grab them and like love them to death because it's unconscious. That's how you respond. But when your husband walks through the door and you're like, so it's those in your home trying to serve those in your home and becoming overwhelmed. Can I ask if you are a mom? Because that makes a world of difference, okay? My husband, I can feel like loving my husband, but not feel like being loving to my husband, if that makes sense. And it has nothing to do with my husband. And I don't know if I'm able to ask this, but like, what do you mean when you say you feel like your efforts are in vain? I'm telling y'all, like, I'm very like conspicuous. Like, I pay close attention to detail, and I don't know if that's a flaw, but I don't ever want to give in to, like, respond to something that I don't feel like I'm getting full clarity from, because I don't feel like my response is gonna be effective. But I do know there are times where my husband will walk through the door, and he wouldn't get a response from me, especially when we're in that place. But we're not talking about being in that place. Like right now, my husband will walk through the door, and there are nights where, we're just hanging out, playing, and it's been a decent day or whatever the case may be, and I welcome him with love, and, he's like, hey, baby, and I'm like, hey, I love him. And then there are times where I'm so, like, highly frustrated. He walks through the door, and he doesn't feel that love. But it's not because I don't feel like, it's not because I don't intentionally want to be loving to him, but it's because I don't feel like being loving in the moment. But, and like you, I don't want my efforts to be in vain. I don't want them to feel like I'm going through the motions. I don't know. Do you ever feel like you're going through the motions of being a wife? Because that's one of the things that is a sign that you've lost the joy of being a wife. Once you ever feel like you're going through the motions. And sometimes it feels like that, unintentionally. But there are times I don't necessarily have the energy. I guess, yes, we're foster parents, so kids are in and out. I mean, as in, sometimes I feel burnt out, cleaning, cooking, serving. I got tired just reading that, sorry. My husband isn't the most romantic, and I don't take it personally, but I do at the same time. I get it. Well, first of all, I take my whole hat that I don't even have on my head off to you for being foster parents. Like, we were just talking about that the other day. I know that takes a lot. So that means you have a lot of adapting, like, going on in your life. Like, you have a lot of transitioning going on in your life. So that means, like, your emotions, like, are never at rest. And I'm pretty sure your husband's aren't either, because him being the head of the home, he has to head the whole thing. So for one, that's a weight to carry. But then you, like you said, being the caretaker of the home, cleaning and cooking and, serving, it does make you feel burnt out. And so I get what you're saying. It makes you, I don't feel like being loving, and that's a sign that you're being drained from all the other cares in your world, and you're being drained from all the other responsibilities outside of marriage are draining you, and it's affecting your intent to be loving to your husband. And I talked about that in one of our sessions, making sure that parenthood don't negatively get in the way of marriage, because it's like they're not two separate entities, but they work hand in hand, and you have to make sure that you're balancing them out. And we talked about that too, because sometimes the reason why you're not feeling like being loving is not because you don't want to, it's because there's nothing left in you. Especially at the end of the day, like, that's why I use that example. By the end of the day, I just want to, sit down, and I'm like, hey babe, your food's, or he'll sit down and I'll fix his food, and it's like 11 o'clock before we've even said, hey, how are you, and then there are some nights where I'm on top of my game, and, I do have the energy for him. But I will say, I've learned, to prioritize certain areas in our marriage, and maybe y'all can catch the little, like, gray lines in between. I've learned to prioritize certain areas in our marriage, and you won't think it, but sometimes it reaches a place where you have to put everything on a calendar, like everything on a calendar. And I don't know if you're a planner, but maybe it'll help. What, I'm not gonna cook tonight. We're getting takeout, and the beds are going on early. When I tell y'all we put our beds in bed at 8 o'clock last night, we really did. They went to bed at 8, and we left, and we went and got something to eat, and just rode together, and just hung out, and just stimulated a conversation, and when I got in, I could feel myself still in mom mode, and it's a process. It's like you have to come out of being in mom mode and come out of being the servant and step into being a wife. It's almost like it's so hard to do it simultaneously. It's almost like it's impossible sometimes. It's impossible to do all of those things simultaneously and be equally effective in all of them while you're doing it simultaneously. It's a job. It's work. That's why I say, to who this marriage thing is for, let it be for you. Because sometimes I feel like, I'm not built for this. Like I'm not cut out for it. But God is going to continue to equip you along the way. And if your husband isn't the most romantic, I would encourage you to make known to him the things that you like. Make known to him, and because I had to do this for my husband because he was upset. I would find him getting upset. I would find him getting upset about not responding to him in a certain area in our marriage, or not having the enthusiasm to respond to him. And I was letting him know it's not because I necessarily don't want to, but there are some hindrances in the way. And once I made known those hindrances, he was a little more enlightened. And then once I made known to him what would help me, it helped him to be more intentional about doing those things so that he can stimulate a response from me. So if you really want to stimulate a response from your husband, make him known. If you got to write it down write down a whole list of all the things you love. I love watching romance movies, or I love ice cream and flowers. I'm not crazy about flowers and roses and showing up to my job or showing up at home. Like, that's just not. I'm like, just bring me a vanilla bean colada instead, or bring me like a caramel frappe or whatever. I'm just not crazy about the ice cream and the flowers and all that good stuff. But if you got to write down a list, then so be it, and give him that list, and then take that list, and I don't know if you know the Father, but take that list and make a copy for yourself, and begin to pray over that list, and pray, God, equip my husband to be sensitive to this list. Equip my husband to understand that the things on this list mean a lot to me, and they help me to continue to be the serving, loving wife that he wants me to be, and that you've called me to be. And just see if that will help your husband. Even if you got to make it a note in your iPhone and share it with your husband. And every time you add something to it, he'll see the note. I had to do that when buying groceries. So it might help. That might help too. And make sure you're taking a break from all of those duties and you're refilling, because when you refill, that enables you to be the wife to your husband that I know in your heart you want to be outside of being a foster parent. I'd love to talk to you more outside of our session. Always never forget the way you felt when you said, I do. Aunt Teresa now, some people didn't feel all that. Some people didn't feel all that gushy and loving. They were probably stressed out from all the wedding planning. That's why I say it's got to be enjoyable. They're like, can we just get this over with and go home? Thank you. Your response was so refreshing. That list is so great, especially praying over it. Thank you, Megan. But I agree with Aunt Teresa. Never forget the way you felt when you said I do. And in our first session we talked about that. And I'm gonna share a little bit about the gift cards, and then we're gonna go. All right, we talked about remembering that our flesh is not saved. Like, for as long as you live, for as long as you're married, you are going to deal with your husband's flesh. Because, truth be told, we are in the flesh, and our flesh fails daily. Our flesh fails numerous times daily. So there are numerous times, if you spend a whole day, a whole month with your husband, no work, just being with your husband all day, every day, you're going to see his flesh at hand, and you're going to see his flesh fail. And you need to, keep in mind that it is up to you on how you respond to their flesh when it fails, but it's also an opportunity to see where they're failing so that you can choose to be graceful in that area and choose to help them pray over it. And also, if you need to enlighten them in that area, because I'm the first to say, you know, I have to encourage my husband to hold me accountable. I'm like, I need you to hold me accountable. Like, let me know where I'm feeling, because sometimes a guy don't want to come at you until they're coming at you about a thing. And they won't say anything until they're like ready to blow up about it and finally say something about it. So it's always important to make, and somebody, you don't always know where you're failing until somebody brings it to your attention. And I had to tell him that sitting down, like as we were communicating a long time ago, babe, you have to make me aware. And at first he was like, my husband, this is exactly what he said. He was like, well, I don't hold on to stuff. I just let it go and say it is what it is. You know, I forget about it. In other words, he's saying he don't hold a grudge, and he's like, just forgets about it. Like, he don't make a big deal about it, but it becomes a big deal when it continues and it continues and it continues. So I'm like, a little contradicting. It is a big deal because, you know, when you're ready to say something about it, you're to the point where you don't want to deal with it anymore because you've dealt with it for so long but never brought it to my attention. So you not dealing with it and it not being a big deal then, it's now become a big deal now. So make sure you're holding one another accountable, and don't shy away from the correction. If they're telling you something, like, that's something I struggle with. That very night when we were talking, he was trying to tell me, you know, I'm trying to tell you now. I know you say I don't hold you accountable, but I'm trying to tell you now that you're probably not seeing it, but this is the case. And I was like, no, I'm not seeing it. And as we continued to talk, I was like, okay, I get what you're saying. So you definitely gotta, like, be able to reproof one another too. But anyway, does anybody have any more questions for me before we get ready to close and shut down? Does anybody have any more questions for me? Any at all? Okay. Well, so I can't find the gift card that I used that I'm going to be giving out, but I said before, and I don't know who's watching now, but I just want to sow into your marriage, because you guys have really, you know, you've sown into my ministry, and I'm thankful for you guys, and I'm honored to be able to, you know, be here and talk to y'all, and, you know, just give you what God has given me. And it wasn't so much a strategic lesson tonight, or a word out of my spirit. It was just me wanting to celebrate with y'all for it being the 1 year anniversary. It's just crazy. You know, I've never had a ministry to myself. I've always served in ministries my entire life, you know, from singing and dancing and drama teams, and, you know, and now with my husband co-pastoring the youth at my church, which we haven't been able to see now, but we're getting ready to jumpstart that again. But, you know, finally, God just trusting me to do this, just trusting me to do what I do. You know, he spoke to me in the beginning. He said, if I can trust you, with the 4, I'll send 40 more. And he wasn't necessarily deeming it on a number. I've learned that God likes to be fancy with how he says stuff sometimes. Or, like, not fancy, like, he just likes to say it where you're like, ooh, you know. But he was like, if I can trust you with the 4, I'll send 40 more. Basically saying, if I can trust you with a little, I'll make it a lot. And I'm so thankful for how this thing has grown and the platform he's given me, because before it was just in-house, and then COVID happened and the enemy thought he was taking it away, and kind of like doing away with what was being birthed. But I'm so glad that this thing has come full term, and God was just kind of mysterious and creative, and just gave me an even bigger platform to speak on, because a lot of people can't be in house every single month, which I do hope to see you guys the third Monday. But so speaking of that, the announcement before I go, Lord willing, I would like to start the in-house sessions come February, which is the love month. Because of course it's Thanksgiving and then Christmas and then COVID is still happening and still running rapid. And I just want to, be as cautious as possible with everybody that will attend. We are meeting at Golden Corral at 6:30, the third Monday of every month. And I love the in-house sessions because people are more prone to speak and talk and ask, and it's just much more intimate, and then y'all get to eat. So and then I just get to pray for y'all and just be with you guys and see your face. And we're going to be doing some awesome things in the upcoming year. All of the wives, will get together, and instead of doing an in-house session, we'll go out to eat. And just, have a marital conversation over food and play a few games or whatever the case may be. And just do some cool events. So, and if you guys would, like to help or volunteer or, or anything for all the things that we have coming in the next year, then by all means, let me know. And I'll be in prayer about it. You're fine, Tiff. You're fine. But anyway, so the gift cards, between now and tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, I cannot write down thousands or hundreds of names. But if you want to enter the drawing and in your heart you have integrity, because it goes a long way, don't get on here and say, I've watched 20 years. I watched 20 of your sessions. I want to enter a drawing. You've not watched one session, which I guess if you're on here now, you watch it. But if in your heart you've supported the ministry and you've got something from the ministry, then I want to sow all the more into your marriage, and I want you to send me your name in a DM or comment it here, and please share the word, because there's so many people that aren't watching tonight, and let them know to send me their name if they want to be entered into the drawing. So at 9 o'clock, I'll put all your names in a drawing, and I'm going to give out 4 gift cards, $25 gift cards, to the places I was telling you about. There'll be 4 different places, like Outback, Carrabba's, Bonefish Grill, whatever. And I may throw a different one in there. I'm not sure, but they'll be $25 each, and it'll be a spontaneous draw, because I can't just say, oh my gosh, you've been so supportive over the other, because y'all have been awesome. And I just want to do something, and I want you to spend it on you and your hubby or your fiance, not you and your kids. Okay, you and your hubby, and just enjoy it, and I'm excited about it. So make sure you guys give me your name, okay? Just say I want to enter in, or just tag your name in black, and I'll know that you're basically telling me I want to enter in. And just share the word, and I'm gonna do the drawing. I'm gonna write down all the names once after tomorrow at 9. I want to give everybody a day to enter in. Then I'll do the drawing, and I'll definitely be in touch about who won, and I'll mail it to you, or I can meet you and give you the gift card in hand. So if all hearts are clear and there are no more questions, if there are any prayer requests, I want to pray and let you guys on out of here. If there are any prayer requests, Jason, this is this is for women only. It's really good. Thank you, Aunt Teresa. That's so humbling. I've definitely noticed that he has, and I just want to use it for the glory, because if he ain't using it for him, what are you using it for? For real. Exactly. You heard your sister, ladies only. So if there are no prayer requests, I want to pray for all those watching. I want to pray. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Okay, that is it. All right. Okay, so we're going to pray. Are y'all ready? Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for this night, God. I just want to thank you for everybody that has tuned in tonight, God. I just want to speak blessing. I want to speak peace. I want to speak joy. And I want to speak restoration over every single soul that is watching right now, in Jesus' name. God, I ask, God, that you'd have your way in their house, have your way in their marriage, God. I pray, God, that you would open up their eyes, God, to see what they haven't seen thus far, God. I pray, God, that you'd help them to use the valley that they may be in, God, and let it equip them, let it mature them, God, let it mold them and let it purge them, God, of anything that is in them that may be suffocating the marriage, God. If they're falling up under their own weight, God, let them see it, God, so that the weight can be lifted, God. I rebuke every hindrance, God. I rebuke the enemy, God, and I declare this night that no weapon formed against their marriage shall prosper in Jesus' name. God, I declare that you are going to give them the tools using this ministry, God, using the wisdom that you've given them and the relationship that they have with you, to grow and to mature, God, and to get past, God, the friction that the enemy wants to use to destroy them and kill this thing, God. I'm so thankful that you are a God who turns around what he causes for evil for good, God. And your word even says all those who love you, God, all those who love you, good works out, God. Good happens, God, in the end for those who are called according to your purpose, God. And I'm so thankful that that's the kind of God that you are. God, I love you. We thank you for what you're doing in this ministry called Married Sisters. I thank you for birthing it. I thank you for enabling me to be disciplined, God. I thank you for the village that has helped me, God, get to this place where I can speak to these people. God, I love you, and it's all in your sweet name. We pray amen and amen. Amen. All right, you guys. Please spread the word and get me your names, and I'll enter you in, and I'll make an announcement the morning of, before I go live, and I'll try to go live that evening and do the drawing. I'm so excited to give y'all I'm so excited to feed y'all. All right, y'all be blessed.